Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another In the Wolves Den video blog. And we are about ready to head to a men's Bible study / breakfast. This is at a buddy's of mine's church, and actually brings up an interesting question that I've had posed to me. Now, this question is because a friend of mine was told that it is wrong for people of one church to go to another church's functions. And while I believe that there is unity in the body, there is unity when a community that is a church that calls itself by one name, be it Central City Church or Capital City Church or Tri-County Church, whatever you want to call it. While I believe that is good and healthy for that body to be together, there are benefits that happen when people take away those restrictions. Excuse me. And what I mean by that is I believe the Bible does not ban such a use, such a thing as interchurch happenings. I don't even know really what to call it. I find it sad in some ways that people fall into this, but what ends up happening is there are ministries within some churches that die off, and this is just an example of why I'm not for it. There are ministries that die off, be it lack of knowledge, lack of training, lack of interest to it, for it, and what ends up happening is you get some people that want to experience, or they have experienced it at their church, but they never were involved in the leadership of it, the planning and running of it. And so what ends up happening, and what I've seen happen, is people will use men's ministry as the example, since I'm going to a men's breakfast Bible study here. What ends up happening is, if, say, Capital City Church had a good men's ministry 10 years ago, but because the church slowed down in growth, people left, the membership got older, and the youth movement, if you will, moved to hipper, I hate using that term, but hipper churches. What ends up happening is that church tries to figure out what went wrong. And in some cases, they wrongfully shut down ministries that are needed. Now, men's ministry, according to statistics from the Pew Research and other research groups, in men that come to church that click, they get together, they get in unity with other men in that church, 96% of them stay. 96%. Think about that. And so this becomes an interesting part. This becomes something that is a need within churches, to have men's ministry. Now, if that ministry dies off, and then you have people that kind of remember what that was, say 5 years after the ministry dies out. Nobody's doing anything. There is nothing. No men's Bible study, no men's dinners, no men's breakfasts, no even going to men's conferences or retreats, anything. What ends up happening is you will find in some of these cases that people move away to other churches that have a thriving ministry in that area. And what ends up happening is when the people within the body find out that this is becoming a need, a necessity, they struggle to figure out how do they get the problem rectified. How do they fix the problem, in other words? And so that becomes the interesting thing within the ministry, within the body, within the church. So in one case that I've seen it where a person, after about 5 years of not seeing any kind of ministry, any kind of movement go on within the body that they were a part of, what ended up happening was they turned around and they worked at trying to find out how they could get trained for men's ministry. And what ended up happening is they started going to another church's men's ministry. And that church was very open to the fact they weren't trying to, take this person from that church that he was in. They understood the need for the ministry within that church. And so the leadership of the men's ministry actually turned around and started to disciple, started to train this person on how to properly run a good, thriving, growing, disciple-making men's ministry. So that's why I'm not for this whole, gotta keep to ourselves type thing. I've been a part of a church that was that way. That was very much, we have to stay within them ourselves. And it was when I was in my teen years. And it really disturbed me because that church was basically saying all other churches were wrong. All other churches were this. I mean, it was almost cult-like, if you will. And then I ended up meeting my wife, my future wife, and her family got me into their church that they were going to. I had actually left the church I was at, had gone back to a church that my father had been an associate pastor of years before, and just kind of wallowed there for about 6 months trying to figure out what I was going to do, where I was going to go. And what ended up happening was my wife's family got me, to start going to their church, and they had a good, thriving men's ministry there. That, in this case, I had been in a good, thriving men's ministry, what I would consider a good, thriving men's ministry at the other church, helped me to mature, helped me to grow in my faith. But then, because I was trying to understand why they taught what they did, and then getting into this church that I had been at I actually stayed at that church, got married to my wife in that church, stayed at that church, served in that church as a youth pastor for many years. That church's men's ministry was instrumental in helping me grow. And now in the church that I'm at, I'm the pastor that oversees community groups, but among the ministries that I oversee, I share co-leadership with our senior pastor over the men's ministry. And so it's still a growing process for me because there's still a lot of things that I've had to learn, and there's many things that I get when I go to visit my friend's church for these breakfasts, I get many ideas. And that's one of the things. Breakfasts are great, but they're not for everybody. At our church, men's breakfasts usually are only attended by 1 or 2 people. Now, in contrast, we do a men's dinner, and we get between 20 to 50 people going to the men's dinner, because instead of getting just breakfast, they've been thinking about it all day. They might do their work all day, and now they're going to get a steak dinner or a chicken dinner or whatever. And it's just a good feeling to see what happens there. It's good to see how we get people. But that's the thing that I've learned while growing as a men's leader, is that you have to know the body of men who you're serving and what they're going to be wanting. And that's one thing. I grew up going to men's breakfast a lot. And so for me, it was men's breakfast. And then when the men weren't coming to the men's breakfast, I questioned, okay, well, what's going on here? Why aren't we getting men there? And then it was suggested to me, well, let's try a men's dinner. We tried the men's dinner, and the first men's dinner, I think, was it was attended by 15 guys. The next one was attended by 35 guys. The next one after that was attended by like 50 guys. Next one after that was back to about 30 guys. But the main point is, we found out that, hey, if we're going to have a men's gathering and get the guys together to listen to a guy who's going to speak to them, to their hearts, where they need it, we'll do men's dinners. That's where God has set the niche for these guys. So that's one of the things. So men's ministry is important. And, it's one of those things when it comes to churches that try to stay by themselves, I guess, try to, I don't know how to quite call it, but basically, I'm not for it, because you can learn stuff. There's a lot of stuff I've learned from other churches. Our church is part of a network that has put on different aspects, different training sessions for different people, and so I'm not for it, for the people that try to break it apart, because I think it causes division within the body, and Christ did not come to divide the body. He came to keep the body unified, and that's what we have to understand. We have to understand that Paul sent Timothy and Titus and John Mark and Apollos and all these others that he had trained to other churches. He didn't keep them in one church. He sent them to other churches for other reasons. And so that's it. I'm pulling in here now to this church. My buddy's waiting for me. So I'm just going to say, God bless, and I'll see you in a little bit. Hope you like it. Like, subscribe to this video, to this channel. All right, God bless.